Okay, so today we're gonna process 3 files and we're going to write our own custom pipes. So the first thing that you need to do is create this file here. So search transactions.pipe.ts. So that's the first file that you need to create, and then you need to populate it with this short code. First of all, you have two imports here. The first import imports pipe and pipe transform. Pipe is a decorator, and we are using it to construct a pipe out of a class, basically. So yeah. And pipe transform, which is the second one here, is an interface which we need to implement so that our class could actually be a pipe or could act like a pipe. Anyway, the one down below, this is just import transactions. We have done that many times before. So here you have add pipe. This is a very similar to a component. So here we will use decorator pipe, and we will give it a name, which will be search transactions. This is the name of the pipe, and we will use, and when we call this pipe, we will use this name. So we will call it by this name. Down below, we are basically creating a class, search transactions pipe. It is recommended that the names of these classes end basically with pipe, just a naming convention, but not strictly mandatory. And then this implements pipe transform. Anyway, then you have a method down below, which is transform. So transform method is basically a method that every pipe needs to have, and we will call it when the data transformation call occurs within the HTML code later on when we actually utilize it. The first parameter that the pipe receives is basically the argument that stands to the left of the pipe. So you have like trans, which basically stands for transactions. Then you have an array, basically just an array of transactions. And you have a search query here. The search query is the parameter by which we will conduct a search. This will be a tag. So when we go onto our site now, you can actually search things by tags. So bills. I have implemented the code, so I can do it now. So if I type in bills, everything with the tag bills will be displayed. This is what we're doing now. This is the bigger picture, I guess. We want to implement this form so we can search everything down below in terms of tags alone. So if we type in a tag, we will be able to find something that contains that particular tag. Okay. And that will be the search query. So that will basically be a string, which in turn will be the name of a tag. If the search query is equal to nothing, then just return all the transactions possible. So here, if I put it as empty, it's going to return to me all the existing transactions. However, if that is not the case, then we will need to filter these transactions. And for this, we will need to use a filter method, which is a parameter basically receives arrow function here, which will be called for every element of this array of transactions. And for all the elements for which this function returns true, these elements will basically be shown onto the screen. So let's just go ahead and tear this apart and see what is what here. So trans is basically the entry parameter, and filter is basically a method for the arrays. It is a built-in method. And then you have an arrow syntax function here. T is the argument of the function, and it represents one element of the array. Tags is basically all the tags from the transaction. So when you type in t.tags, those are all the tags of the transaction. And index of is another built-in method for the array, which searches for the index of the element, which is basically search query. So you have a search query string, which you populate with something, with some sort of a tag. on the site. So you type in something here like tags or something, bills, electricity, etc. So you type in one of those, and if the element corresponds to that string, this function will return the index of that particular element. If it does not exist, however, you have a piece of code here, it will return -1. Or if it does exist, as I stated, it will return the index of that particular element. Now we need to go to the details.component.ts, and then we'll move on to the HTML. So here we will import a new pipe that we just made. So search transaction pipe, and you have pipes here where we simply state that we're going to use this pipe. You can have multiple pipes here, no problems. But this is only used for custom pipes. For built-in pipes, it is not required for you to actually do this. Now we need to scroll down. This, for the most part, remains the same. Let me just go ahead and find it. So we need a string. We're looking for a string, which is ng_ is tag search query. Okay, so here we are. Sorry, it took me a bit of time to find it. There's a lot of code here. Anyway, this is the string in which we will store our queries. So when you type it in, we'll use this string to actually store it. And then you have a method down, search by tag. This is a helper function that will be used when you click on search, and it will store the value that we enter into the string. So you type in some value, and it gets passed to the function. It can be of any type, because I was kind of lazy. And then it goes this tags search query, which is the string up above, and then it equals to tag el.value. So we are pulling the value within a particular HTML element, and we are putting it into this string, basically. That's pretty much all that there is. So the dot value just takes the value from the HTML element. Anyway, now we can go and switch to the details.component.html, and there is a little bit to explain here. These are just comments from before, so there is nothing new there. I'm just looking for the search form. Yep, here we go. So this search form, it corresponds to this on the site. So search by tag, input field, button, search. Anyway, you have, so you have inline, which basically just states that we want everything to be on one line, search by tag and the search button and the input field, so that it's not one below the other. You have pull right, which basically aligns this form to the right in regard to the parent element. And then you just have basically some bootstrap things down below for styling. It's a search tag, a search by tag. You can have a look at it here. It says search by tag. And input type text, form control, ID be search tag, and here is the interesting part. It's a placeholder and then equals tag 3 lines. So this is the default placeholder. As you can see here, it says tag and then 3 lines. This counts as an empty field, but it has a placeholder, which is basically tag dot 3 and 3 dots. Just see, and right after it, we have a reference variable to this element, because we will need to reuse this element again. So you have a button, submit, just like before, nothing special here. It says click, and on click you are calling search by tag method, and to that search by tag method you are passing the reference to this input HTML, to this input element here. And then from that input element with a dot value, here, you are pulling the value that was basically entered, some sort of text that you've entered, the name of the tag itself. So that's basically it. That's how you basically pull it. And in addition to all of that, we're just gonna get what we wanted in the field. So let me just show you. That entire form represents this part here. So if I type in, this is not going to yield any results. But if I type in bill, again, nothing, it's bills, I'm going to get this one. So everything stays here, and this bills is the value that is pulled out of this HTML input element, and that is basically passed onwards to the method. Anyway, next thing that we have is this part here. But that part is nothing new, that's old. I'm just interested in this part. So this is for displaying transactions. So we have an ng for, but this is not exactly a for loop. This is more akin to the for each loop. So it says let t off and then something here. So let's go from left to right. So you have trans, which is passed to the pipe. The pipe is search transactions. Trans is the first argument that is passed to the pipe search transactions. And then search transactions also acts in regard to this, which says underscore tags search query. So this is also, the search query is also given to the pipe so that it knows how to utilize this information, because we have to filter out what we are displaying here. We cannot have all the search things. We cannot have all the transactions. We just need the transaction that we want. So it says, whatever comes out of this, whatever is the result of this, store it into T, and then process T down below. And for as long as this is returning values, for as long as it has elements, so to say, they're being placed into T, and this is repeated for every single valid element. What I mean by that is if you type in bills, this is going to repeat once. If you type in nothing here, if this is empty, it's going to go, everything is going to be valid and everything will be displayed onto the screen. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the discussion section. For the time being, I bid you farewell.